I tend to buy diecast in big batches. And every once in a while, when I get a box of new stuff in, I'll pull a model out of the box and it just, takes my breath away. And earlier today, I received a box of the latest releases from Inno64 and pulled this Toyota Celica 1600 GT out of the box and just was just blown away. This thing looks absolutely amazing. This is a very cool casting from Inno64. We've seen a couple versions of it already, and they've done a couple different variations on it. So the first one we saw was this racing version, and this one in itself was a pretty awesome release. And this blue one appears to be based on this racing version of the car. And then they also have a purely street version of the car as well, which is also very cool. But for me, this racing version of the casting is the real winner, and this one just looks stunning. And so we're going to get this out of the package, but before we do that, we'll take a quick spin around the box. And I can see this. So this is a metallic blue, and this, like I said, this thing just looks amazing. And this is the latest iteration of Inno64. So this casting does have a metal base. It does roll, and it actually also has suspension. So I mean, if there's a brand that's really been upping their game in the last 6 months or so, or last year maybe, it is Inno64. Because they used to be, plastic base. They tended to do slam models that wouldn't roll, and they certainly didn't have any suspension because the wheels wouldn't even turn. But this thing is, I mean, if you like this car, obviously, if you don't like this car, this model's not going to appeal to you. But I love this car, and this thing is just amazing. So cool. The metallic blue paint is just gorgeous. The graphics are crisp. The wheels look awesome. Front end detail is fantastic. Rear end detail looks fantastic. Nice Toyota there on the tailgate. So the metal base, rubber tires, and as I mentioned, so that it will roll. This one's not a super smooth roller, and then actually this one doesn't have suspension. Maybe it's only the streetcar version that has suspension. Let's see, does this bounce? No, apparently the racing version doesn't have suspension. I thought they both had suspension, but this version of it does have suspension, and the racing version does not. But yeah, just an amazing release from Inno64. Did a great job on these tires, which is, a lot of times that's a real weakness on at 1/64 scale. They a lot of brands tend to neglect the tires, and Inno has done a really good job on this overall. Obviously, on the racing version, you're going to have slick tires, but on the road car version, even though it's the same casting, yeah, just beautiful. Fantastic release from Inno64. All right. So next, another brand and collaboration that we've has really been putting out some amazing stuff is this Kyosho House Mini GT collaboration. So a lot of people have been referring to this as a Mini GT product. It's really a Kyosho House product that's manufactured by Mini GT. And we've seen several versions of this. This one is in a BRE livery. They have put out two versions of this, or two variations in this release, and they're both the same livery. And as far as I know, one is is gloss and one is matte for the white. I only picked up one. I did not pick up both of them because they seem too similar to me. But we'll see. We'll see how this one looks once we get it out of the package. This should be the matte white version of the car. And if that's truly the only difference between the two, there's going to be very little difference between the matte white and the gloss white. Because it is matte white on the side, but it is, the red is very glossy. So if that's the only difference, then there's almost no difference. So I don't know. I didn't look very closely. I should have looked a little bit more closely to see if maybe there's a wheel variation or something else, to vary between the two versions of the car. Because if it really is just the glossiness of the paint, they're almost exactly the same. But we'll see. This one has a wonky tire on it. Hopefully that's easy to fix up. But this is this is very cool casting. They've put out quite a few of these now. I think this is number 6. So this would be 6 and 7, I believe, the two variations of this BRE livery. And then they've also put out a couple of website exclusive versions that are black and blue. But overall, it is a very cool casting. And this one looks pretty neat. It looks super low, like the way the graphics are, and the way the wheels are tucked up in there. It makes the car look super low, which is pretty cool. I mean, it has a really super slammed look to it. Like if you compare it to the other ones, they don't have that same look. Even though they sit the same, it just doesn't look so slammed. There's something about the way the paint's done that makes it look really slammed. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so there was a wheel variation. The first 4 versions came out with this style of wheel, and then when this one came out, they introduced this style of wheel, which this one also has that same wheel. So I don't know. I need to look more closely at the other version of this. Anyway, it's a cool release. They're putting out quite a few of them though. They do have a 510 wagon coming, and then also a Z, like a 240Z coming as well, which that will be very cool. All right, moving on. So from Greenlight, last of the V8 Interceptors, 1972 Ford Falcon XB. This is a casting I've been looking to get for a while. I've seen it on other channels, and I just thought it looked like such a cool car. And I had picked this up a few weeks ago, so I'm excited to finally be getting it out of the package and taking a look at it. So it's gloss black with some flat black areas that looks really cool. Around the hood, around the engine, and around the wheel wells. Actually, the whole base of the car is in flat black. Yellowed headlights, so they're lensed headlights, but yellowed plastic, which is cool. Yeah, this thing is awesome. Massive side pipes. Very cool, and it's got a very aggressive, mean-looking stance. Of course, it rolls nice. Or, well, not of course, that's not a given with a Greenlight, but this one rolls nice. Wow, this is cool. This is, awesome. So those are 3 very awesome releases to start things off with. We'll have another new Inno64 release a little bit later to take a look at, but first we're going to take a quick look at some other stuff. So we have from Schuco, Mini Cooper. This is the paper box edition. I've managed to pick up a few of these lately, and This is the first Schuco Mini that I have picked up. So, wow, that thing is tiny. Wow. So this is like the first generation Mini, right? Does it say? It just says Mini Cooper. I assume this is a Mini Mark 1 or whatever they were called. But wow, I mean, this Celica is not a very big car, and the Mini is tiny even compared to that. Obviously, this is a very small car as well, but this is not 1/64 scale. That's the big criticism of that casting. But it's a Kaido house product, not a Mini GT product, so they can get away with that. So I got another wonky wheel here. Under tire. Get that back on there. Yeah, so here's some lensed headlights and painted taillights. Very cool. Very tiny. Wow, I'm really surprised. How well? I mean, I know it's a tiny car. You just get so used to the the oversized ones because everybody always does this casting too big. Like we have the TinyHK, which that thing is huge. I think these are 1/50th scale or something like that. So it's very cool to see one that's actually 1/64 scale. It's a little tiny thing. That's awesome. Love that one too. Next up from Siku. This is the Bugatti Chiron and Gendarmerie livery. One of my favorite police liveries. Oops. I dump it out on the table. Just love the blue with the white. I don't really know why, but I'm a big fan of this. Obviously, this is a Siku. Siku's run pretty large. This is probably, I don't know what the scale on these are. Maybe 155 or something like that. It's big, but this one has rubber tires. It's a plastic base. Has lensed headlights and painted taillights. Not a whole lot going on in the taillights, but this is pretty cool. The Bugatti's not really my favorite car, but this is a pretty neat release. I have no idea if the Gendarmerie actually drive this car. I suspect they probably do not, but it is cool nonetheless. So awesome. Then from Aerocar, this is going to be a super boring car. Honda Vezel. I believe this is in the US. This is sold as a CRV, if I remember right. So one of the more unexciting cars in diecast form, but sometimes those are awesome as well. So this is just in a nice gray color, and it's from Aerocar, so the doors are going to open on it if we can get them open. Without breaking it. Come on. They open, but not easily. There we go. So right-hand drive on this one. And lens taillights, it don't look too bad. Got some color in there, which is pretty cool. Brake indicator on the roof there. Lensed headlights don't look great. Those are pretty cloudy looking and kind of lacking in detail. But Honda badge on the front looks pretty good. So metal body, plastic base, rubber tires. Aerocars will roll, and they do not have suspension, but they roll pretty nicely. So this is cool. It's a nice boring car, which can be a fun thing in its own way. And if that's 1/64 scale, that's so tiny. All right, so as I mentioned before, another Inno64 release, new release, Nissan Skyline GTR R31, and this one is in just dark blue, not very exciting color, but this one looks pretty cool as well. And this is one of their releases that comes with extra wheels. So those look pretty interesting. But those would look pretty cool on there. A dark blue with that white. What are these, Aero style wheels? Is that what they're called? But get this thing off the base. And take a closer look at it. All right, come on, get off of there. So, if you're a fan of GTRs, you know, this is the older style. I'm not going to try to sound like an expert on GTRs. I am not by any stretch of the imagination. But this one looks really cool. They did a fantastic job on the taillights. Yeah, Inno's just doing great work. Just great work. And there's detail in that interior too. Looks like it has racing harnesses on the seats. That's pretty cool. So again, this is a metal body, metal base, rubber tires. And let's see, does this one roll? It does. Obviously, you're not going to send these down a track. They have a lot of friction in their rolling, but they do roll, which is nice. But yeah, this is another beautiful release. They've put out several versions of these now. Racing version and... Oh wait, actually, is there a racing version? I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a racing version, which we'll see probably next week. Racing version of that one, and then the street version. And I think they put out 4 different variations at the same time. There's two street versions, blue and black, and then I think a couple racing versions. But it's very interesting. All right, Majorette. Mercedes-Benz E-Class all-terrain. You know, I love wagons. Always happy to get a wagon. This one came to me from Chris at CRE Diecast as part of a big box of stuff that he sent me a few weeks ago, and along with this Siku Bugatti. And Majorette is always a fun brand to collect. It's a very nice red color. Opening tailgate, of course, which is cool. Big giant trailer hitch on here. And, you know, so these are metal body, plastic base. They have suspension and they roll. You know, of course, they roll very well. This one has plastic tires, so it's going to roll really well. So, yeah, it's very cool. Always love getting Majorette cars. It's just a fun brand to collect. Obviously, they're not going to be the most detailed and accurate models in the world. They're not perfect on scale, so this one is 1/62 scale. So it's a little bit large. But it's just a cool brand to collect. I love them. And so one more from Majorette. This purple Ford GT. This is not really my favorite Majorette casting. There are definitely much better versions of the Ford GT available, but it's cool in its own way. Yeah, nothing too exciting with this one. You know, when you have Mini GT putting out a Ford GT, it's gonna beat this by a wide margin. And this, since this is a street car from Majorette, this is kind of their equivalent of a Hot Wheels mainline. So it's, it's plastic base, plastic tires, no suspension on these, and no opening parts or anything. So they're just kind of basic. But I don't know. Yeah, that Ford GT casting I'm really not that big of a fan of. It's probably my least favorite Majorette that I have. This one's awesome though. But very cool. So moving on from Kyosho, Lamborghini mini car collection. This is a Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo, and this looks to be in similar. So this is the similar packaging that Kyosho does for their blind box releases, but this was not a blind box, so you could obviously see which car was in it. So I think these must have been a little bit later than the blind box releases. Although I don't see a date on the box. But anyway, so you had a card. There are two different variations of this. Gray and yellow, or silver and yellow. Which is cool. Silver one looks cool. Yellow one looks pretty cool as well. So if we can get this off the base without breaking it, because I grabbed it by the mirrors. Something you definitely do not want to do. Making a mess here. Yeah, this looks very cool. Yeah, Kyosho, was the king of premium diecast in the early 2000s. I don't know when this one came out. Let's see if there's no date on the bottom either. But they put out so many fantastic models. Just about every supercar, it seems like, and so many race cars. And just fantastic stuff overall. And this one's very cool. So it looks like it's got painted taillights and little lens headlights, which look pretty good. So it's going to be metal body, plastic base, rubber tires, and it should roll. Kyoshos typically do roll pretty well, and that's the case with this one. Nothing really going on in the interior. The interior is always just black plastic. But yeah, awesome. Excellent addition to the Lamborghini collection. Very, very good. Very happy to have that one. Sorry, I have to collect this stuff up a little bit, otherwise it gets out of control. All right. Moving on from TinyHK, we have a BMW 5 Series F10 in silver. So TinyHK is a Hong Kong-based brand. Does lots of vehicles that are very specific to the Hong Kong market. Lots of police and fire vehicles, buses. They're very well known for their buses. And they do a few street cars, not a whole lot. This one is one of the few BMWs that they do. They do the sedan version, and they also do a wagon version of this car. And it has opening doors. It's just a decent looking interior. It's all black, but the fit on the doors on this isn't great, but it's pretty cool. So it has suspension, and Tinys always roll really well. Looks like this one has plastic wheels, plastic tires. Lensed headlights though, and painted taillights. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool. With Tiny, they're not a super premium brand, and they're not necessarily going for the most accurate models in the world. They are, most really a toy brand more than anything. But the stuff that they put out is reasonably detailed, and when they do liveries and stuff, fire liveries or police liveries or their bus liveries or what have you, they're accurate, which is very cool. And and then they do things like I had pulled this Mini out earlier, which it's not a bad model at all for being a toy, effectively a toy. So I think they span the toy collectible spectrum pretty well. But all right, next up from Para64, the BMW X7. So the world's most exciting vehicle. Big SUV. I love these things. I don't know why. I'm not a fan of SUVs at all, but I love to get them in diecast form. And these Para64 ones are pretty awesome for what they are. I don't know of anybody else who does this vehicle in 1/64 scale. So, Para64 is metal body, it's a plastic base, and rubber tires. You'll have lensed headlights and then lensed tail lights. This one's got a little bit of extra treatment to the taillights that a lot of Para64s don't get. So they've put a little bit of more detail in here. A lot of times Para64 taillights are just a big block of clear plastic, which I personally think looks okay. But this one looks better than most of them do. But yeah, this is cool. It is not the world's most exciting vehicle, like I said, but it is awesome in its own way, and it rolls very nicely. No suspension though. But yeah, awesome. Love that. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's. I've become a huge fan of SUVs. So another Siku. This is the Gumpert Apollo, which is a interesting looking car. And definitely not the world's most beautiful car either. So we have the Bugatti and the Gumpert Apollo, which neither of these are real lookers to me. This car I'm not familiar with at all. It is definitely strange looking. But you do have gold wing doors, which is kind of cool. They probably open on the real car. I'm sure they open a little further than that. But big wing on the back. This one actually has lensed taillights and lensed headlights, although neither of them really looks great. But, it's a Siku, it's a toy. It's going to roll. It's an interesting car. Yeah. Strange vehicle. All right, another interesting looking car, and definitely what can be considered a strange vehicle, but a vehicle that I personally think is awesome, is the Toyota TS050 Hybrid. This is an LMP1 car, so this is the winner at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2019. And so these are hybrid drivetrain vehicles. So they have electric power and gasoline power, which is pretty cool. Definitely not a thing of beauty, but it is. Oh, and I dropped it. Oh dear. Great. Yeah, okay. Don't drop your cars. It's not good for them. Fortunately, it looks like it probably survived okay. So what was I saying? So LMP1 cars definitely function over form, I guess you would say, as they are designed for speed, not for winning a beauty contest. But I think that's what makes them awesome. In their hideousness. They're just so cool. So obviously this was a Sparky. So it has, very nice looking headlights there. And there's some taillights in there somewhere, I think, but I don't see them. So I don't know if they did taillights on this. Looks like maybe not. But yeah, cool. So does this one roll? Yeah, it does. It's not perfect, but it does roll. Yeah, cool. Just a hideous, awesome car. Love it. Yep, cool. Hopefully Sparky will do new versions, of the hypercars that they're running at Le Mans now. And that would be very cool to see. So another Majorette premium cars, Bentley Continental GT V8. This is a kind of a metallic pink, which is interesting. I am a huge fan of Bentleys, and this is a nice, very nice metallic pink. Looks pretty good. And lensed headlights on this one, painted taillights. Not a whole lot of detail in the taillights. Opening doors. Suspension. It's gonna roll. Yeah, that's cool. So I had this one as well. I picked up a couple weeks ago. I think I like the green one better, but it's cool. Very glad to have these in the Majorette collection. So that's awesome. Next, from Para64, we have the Mitsubishi 3000 GT. GTO. Actually, what is the correct name of this vehicle? Mitsubishi GTO Puma. Am I wrong? No, it says 3000 GT on there. So I thought I saw this was a 3000 GT. But this car in the Puma livery is very cool. This is one of the earliest Para64 releases. I believe it was actually one of the first models that they ever put out. This along with the BMW i8. And this looks pretty cool. Not a lot going on the headlights. There is a piece of plastic there. I don't know what those headlights should really look like, but there's no paint or anything in there. You can barely even tell that there's headlights there. I mean, this is supposed to be a race car. Maybe the race car didn't have headlights. I don't know. You do have lens tail lights. And this is an example of where they're just red acrylic. So there's, you can't see any additional detail in there. But I think that doesn't look too bad. But yeah, this is cool. This is a very cool model. Plastic base. Not much going on the base. Rubber tires and the slicks. Although this is a race car, so the slicks are okay. Actually, did this have slicks? Yeah, it does. That's unfortunate. That's something I really wish they would fix. I'm fine for a race car if the race car would have had slicks on it, but I think that if you look at the picture of this actual car, I think it is more of a modified race car. This is, I think, really just the street car with a racing livery on it. more than a model of the actual race car that ran this livery. But it's a cool release, and you know, as I mentioned, it was one of the first Para64 releases that they ever came out with. So I'm very, very happy to have that one. And then one more wacky model from Maisto Design, the 1967 Volkswagen 1600 Squareback. So I had kind of just acquired a case of these Maisto cars, just kind of as a fluke, and so I've been including them every once in a while in a video, and just to check them out. And there's just tremendous variation in their quality. Some of them are kind of cool. Like this one I actually think is kind of cool. And some of them are just terrible. Absolutely terrible releases. But it looks like this tailgate opens, but it's super tight. It's interesting how it opens. Kind of cool. But yeah, this one's actually pretty cool. It's got, you know, the kind of louvered out rear windows, which is kind of neat. It looks like it has rubber tires, and you know, it's a plastic base. Obviously painted details. But yeah, I mean, as far as a Maisto release goes, this one's actually not bad at all. I think it's kind of cool. Obviously, it's big. It's not 1/64 scale. It does roll, though, pretty nicely. So, anyway, just a random, weird thing to include and close out the video. Thank you for watching.